Good evening, all. This is Jeff with Astroscoop, Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 21st, 2025. And I see Carolyn's here. Happy equinox. Yes, it is the equinox. Happy spring. Spring began yesterday morning here on the East Coast in this hemisphere. And today is the first full day of spring. And of course, on the other side of the world, like Australia hemisphere, they are starting autumn. So they're having the autumn vibes, and they're going to be having the leaves fall, and we will start to see the leaves come back soon. So we'll wait a few minutes to get started. And I know people like to pop in here a few minutes late. Again, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have a lot to talk about tonight with the spring, which is Aries. So we're going to, all the Pisces talk. You probably won't hear me talk too much about Pisces for a while. And that's the beauty of each astrological sign in the Zodiac cycle, is that it's always something new and fresh to talk about every month and every few weeks, different cycles, which is great, which is wonderful. Because this was a very long winter. It was a very snowy winter here on the East Coast, very cold winter. We had extreme cold, a lot of cold snaps, and it just felt long, especially when we were in Capricorn there, going into Aquarius, then ending the Zodiac in Pisces. And now we're going to talk about how we start the Zodiac cycle all over again with the vernal equinox in Aries. So how's everyone doing? How did you feel with your last week of winter? It was chilly, strange weather here. It's chilly 1 minute and then warmer the next. Tonight is very, very cold, although the sun was incredibly strong today. The sun was very, very strong today. And I got outside a little bit today in the middle of the day, and it was so blustery and cold. It was that March wind, almost that wind of Pisces, but it was so bright. So it was felt a lot different than 2 or 3 weeks ago, or even a month ago. So hang in there. The warm weather's coming, at least for people on the East Coast. The better weather, more light. Now it's light till after 7 p.m., which is wonderful. So we're going to wait a little bit. I know we usually have a couple people that come late. And I just want to remind you, this is my weekly live stream here on YouTube at Astroscoop 301. Fridays at 8 p.m. Last week it was Saturday, but it's usually Fridays here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Time. That's just 8 p.m. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share any of my content if you enjoy it and you get and gain value from it, please. I'm closing in 13 subscribers away from 1,000, from 1K. So we just need 13 more subscribers to get to 1,000. Now, for some people, that's not much of a milestone, but for this tiny channel, it is. So please help me get there. We're very close, and I hope to gain some more momentum this year, especially now that we're in Aries. And I just watched a video. I've been watching a lot of astrologers from Australia and the UK in particular, the UK countries and Australia. For some reason, I'm very attracted to mostly female astrologers that are older and from those countries. They seem to have a lot to offer about the current transits and kind of the spirituality or the spiritual vibrations of what's going on, but yet breaking it down into and digesting it in a way that we can all understand it. Because things are earthy and physical, and a lot of is happening behind the scenes that is spiritual as well. Spiritual growing pains, if you will, kind of thing. But we are in the equinox, we had, here is the March 20th chart from yesterday. This is the chart for New York Standard Time. And as you can see over here, there's the 0-degree ingress of Aries. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. Mercury retrograde in Aries, Venus also retrograde in Aries. So as I was mentioning a few weeks ago, all this Pisces energy that we've had for so long will be dissipating, and we will be all in on the Aries or Mars energy. But tonight we're going to talk about Aries 1, which right now being the 21st of March, on any given year, if I were to look up someone's birth date, that's March 21st, and you can fill in any year, 1920, 1950, 1980, 2000. The individual would be an early Aries, most like a 0 of Aries, and would still be on this Pisces Aries cusp. So anyone born today, tomorrow, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, you are still a Pisces Aries cusp person, even though in the tropical astrology system you are an Aries. So we will talk about that, and then we're going to talk about how this pure Aries energy fits into the design of the cosmic weather right now, and what that means for you if you're not an Aries. If you're not an Aries, you have Aries somewhere in your chart on a house or possibly planets. So what does that mean for all the other 11 signs, and how can you integrate that into your life now practically and apply it now? You'll hear me saying things like now, or action, verbs like that, because right now we are in such an early degree of Aries that this is literally the rebirth of the Zodiac, almost like a baby being born. And we talked about last week that Pisces ends the Zodiac, and it could equate to someone that's probably over 80 years old and living the cycles of life and achieving all that sort of soulful, deep wisdom. And Pisces has all that. But Pisces, we can drown in Pisces in some ways. All of that depth and the empathic energies of Pisces and psychic energies of Pisces is wonderful, but we can also drown in it sometimes. It can be very, very melancholy. It can be very isolating for some people. So this is a good thing now that we're balancing out some of that transiting Pisces energy that we've had for months and months and months with all of this Aries energy. Now, of course, the Aries energy isn't all roses either. Just like any sign, it's how you use it and how you direct it now. But that's sort of thing. That's what we'll talk about. So Carolyn's here. I see someone else, a couple of people popped in and out. That's great. The weekly astrology live streams, as I mentioned before, is YouTube, Fridays at 8 p.m. here. And don't forget to follow me on X, Astro_Scoop, and Instagram, Astroscoop7 as well. I post on there almost daily, and I do reels. And you'll see a lot of my posts relate to a current video or current live stream that I'm talking about. So you can easily keep up to date with what I'm planning for the coming weeks with the sign. So if you'd like to donate to the channel, if you like the content, you can donate during via Venmo, which is just at Astroscoop, capital A and capital S. If you need any help with that, please let me know. So this is the vernal equinox here in this hemisphere, the East Coast. We are in Aries. Aries is literally the first sign. It is the first fire sign of the Zodiac, and it is the first cardinal sign of the Zodiac, which marks the beginning of a season, which is a very poignant point in the astrological calendar year with the vernal equinox and Aries. So Aries has the unique qualities of being the very, very first sign. the very first cardinal sign, and the very first fire sign. So any of you that know Aries people born between March 25th and April 1st or 2nd, depending on the degree in the year, March 25th to April 1st or 2nd, you are engaging with a pure Aries Mars person. This is a Mars ruled person, being Aries, and then co-ruled by the degrees, also by Mars. Now, Aries is not co-ruled by Pluto, like Scorpio is Pluto and kind of co-ruled by Mars in a traditional sense with astrology. A lot of astrologers still put a lot of weight into the Mars influence on Scorpio, but the reverse is not true. Aries is all Mars because it relates to the mythology of Aries and mostly the Greek myths. So Aries, this is what's so unique about Aries is the baby. It's the rebirth of the Zodiac. Aries is just absolute, pure, raw, unfiltered energy. And Aries may be, Aries may be a sign in the Zodiac that has the most gifts and the most struggles. Because if you're the first sign and you are starting the entire Zodiac and you don't have any past, that is both a gift and a curse, because the unbridled enthusiasm of a baby or a child is unmatched compared to all of us that are adults as we grow older and unfortunately lose some of our spontaneity and become more rigid in our ways. And I believe that pretty much happens to everyone, even if you are a flexible person. It's just the cycles of life and what you go through and the wear and tear of life. But to be an Aries person born this week coming up, pure Mars energy is the week of the child. It is a absolute baby, childlike energy. And the people that I've known this week, never met anyone, even if they had a lot of introverted signs in their zodiac, in their horoscope, their chart. There's always a very, very childlike, full of sense and awe and wonder in the world, like just wanting to do things, often without a lot of forethought. And that's regardless of age. I'm not talking about just young Aries people. Could be any age. And I had a boss once, decades ago. I had a boss that was born this week, and at the time she was in her 50s. Of course, I was much younger. I was in the more early stages of my work life, and she was a ball of, for a 50-something person, she was an absolute ball of energy. In fact, she had more energy than most of us that were 15 or 20 years younger than her. And I mean most that she supervised. There's probably about a dozen of us. And I liked her a lot. She was very direct, very honest, very blunt. You always knew where you stood with her when she would give us performance feedback about our work. But she was also very childlike and she ended up getting in trouble at work for doing some very kind of foolish, silly things, which was very odd for someone that was so well educated and accomplished like she was in the field at the time. And being in her mid-50s, it was very odd of how she got in trouble. But she acted very kind of childlike, kind of childish about certain things. So she clearly had more maturing to do and more evolvement to do, even though she was in her 50s. And that's something about Aries people. It really doesn't matter the age, whether you're talking about a teenage Aries, an Aries after their Saturn return at age 30. Saturn returns are very important for Aries people. Oh, you're going to hear me talking about this so much for the next one. So important for Aries people. Aries is probably the #1 sign that needs to learn about responsibility, about being responsible and not acting like a child when it's not appropriate. Now, there are times in life to have all that awe and wonder and that enthusiasm like a child or a baby. But there's many times in life and in work and situations where life calls for a more thoughtful approach. So we'll talk about, in the coming weeks, some of the pitfalls that Aries has, along with all these great gifts. But Aries 1 is all Mars. Now, this is the Pegasus constellation. And so this also governs, I mentioned this a little bit with Pisces. So Pisces people born in the middle of March are technically starting and part of this constellation of Pegasus. And then it goes right up until the early stages of April of the early Aries people. So Pegasus is the horse, and it protected battles with horsemen. It protected horsemen in battles. So the Pegasus theme, the Pegasus horse, the wings were very much prominent for these degrees, especially these degrees of early Aries people and late Pisces to some extent too. So when you add the Pegasus constellation, you add that mythology on top of fire sign, pure fire sign energy, which is Mars, with Aries, you get someone that can be incredibly impulsive and follow their whims and follow their ideas and not want any sort of curbing of any restrictions, or it's like a car that they don't ever want to use the brakes. They want to just ease off the accelerator and let the car coast, but they want to go really fast. And, keep in mind, anytime you meet an Aries person or anyone that has an Aries planet in your chart, that there's going to be some kind of element of boyishness or girlishness to it. Like our parents and grandparents used to say, the boy next door or the girl next door kind of qualities, right? The friendly, cute boy or girl next door kind of thing. That's Aries. So Aries planets often take on a very boyish or girlish vibe, especially early Aries, especially pure Aries planets. That would be mainly like 4 degrees to about 10. You're going to have that Mars, pure Mars, childlike energy. So this is a rebirth. This is it. And it's so wonderful because last year, a year ago, I did a live stream on this weekend, right? You can go back and replay it and see what I said. But that's what's so cool is hopefully I won't say the same things. But a whole year ago, I was doing the rebirth. And I mentioned last week how sometimes it's often hard for me to get motivation for my live streams because I feel like I'm going to talk about the same things every year, every season. Now, I am mentioning concepts that are similar, but it's interesting how as astrologers, we find that with everything changing with the transits, we find ways and fresh ways to expand on the historical symbolism and the mythology of these signs and constellations. So it's a wonderful thing. There's always more to uncover, and there's always a new, like I said, I've been watching older astrologers that are older than me, and they've been talking about Aries and Pisces and all these transits in a very fresh way. Not exactly like they did a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So that's a wonderful thing. So it is a rebirth. This is primal energy. It's primal energy of the earth. Like I mentioned today when I was out, it was so cold. But you know what? The sidewalk, no ice, no snow. The robins are on, in the front of my yard. The robins, people are on motorcycles already, bicycles, jogging, the birds, the squirrels, kind of thing. And the sun's so bright. So even though you go outside and you're like, oh, I need to almost put a winter jacket on this morning, everything else about it is so Aries. It's just this vibrancy of energy and that primal energy of the earth, and planting seeds, all kinds of seeds. That's Aries. Now that primal energy that Aries people have, especially born this week, just talking about pure Aries people, primal energy, because it's all Mars, there is inevitably going to be a naive or a naivete to their character. And whether you find that endearing or not, or attractive or not, when you're with an Aries person, that's your preference. But Aries people have that, and they can often make decisions that can be foolhardy. Aries can be kind of like the fool in the tarot deck. It can be that symbolism. Other signs can be too as well. Any sign can be foolish and misuse their energy. But again, like I said, Aries has no past. So if you believe that Aries has no past, then we're initiating now. We're initiating the energy now that Aries can't wait. Aries has to move. Aries isn't going to be deep and contemplate and be meditative like we saw in Pisces. Aries would benefit from that, especially if they have earth or water signs in their zodiac chart. Or the earth and water signs help Aries a lot to be more grounded and, like I mentioned, a little more thoughtful. So this rebirth always creates a naive outlook on life. And some Aries people believe that anything is possible and anything can happen. But there is a place for that. There is a place, very much a place, for these people in our lives. For those of us that are not born this week, imagine being born out of the most primal energy week of the year, literally the first degree of spring of Aries of the baby. So if you believe in those degrees, that is amazingly primal energy. It's also has enormous challenges because the 28, 29 degree Pisces is a critical degree and can be very difficult to manage between the Pisces feelings and the Aries impulsiveness and intuition. That could be hard for people, even born this week, to reconcile that. And again, if an Aries person is misunderstood, they may see their only recourse is to just forge ahead, and to just be a ram. The symbol is the ram or the sheep. So Aries people are often butting their heads. That doesn't necessarily mean fighting. It doesn't necessarily mean it's negative, but Aries people are not afraid of combat per se, and not afraid to lock horns. When you see two rams in the wild, they are locking horns for a little bit of dominance. Some of it is playfulness, and some of it is social that rams do. But I think rams rarely actually hurt each other. They're so well protected, and they are doing it to see the hierarchy. But I don't think that they're hurting. So that's also a good metaphor for Aries people that like to fight or like to butt heads. Usually the Aries energy is not, it is honest. It's one of the most pure, honest energies in the zodiac. It's a very honest, like you see it coming. That's the beauty of Aries. If an Aries fights with you, Aries is usually fighting fair. They might fight, and it might be strong, and it might be really hard to see coming. Or I should say hard to handle when you see it coming. But it's there, it's transparent. It's not hidden. It's not full of tricks or guise. It's not full of deception, which sometimes we see in Pisces. That doesn't mean Aries is always 100% honest, but generally speaking, you're getting a genuine raw energy from any Aries planet, but especially an early Aries planet with the early degrees in this constellation. You're getting that. And the people I've known this week have been no exception to that. Just very, yeah, I can't, the only way I describe the adults I've known are they're all very childlike, just full of energy and full of enthusiasm, unless someone had an illness or was sick, or has a very afflicted chart with their Mars was afflicted. You would have to look for Mars, the Aries person, to see how they use their energy. That would be very important. And Mars would be the main planet you'd look to. There's no co-ruler in this first pure Aries. These pure Aries degrees are all Mars. But in the myth, Aries was associated with Jason and the Golden Fleece. So the ram was very prominent in those stories. And it relates to the god of war, a very strong lover and loyal, somewhat loyal god and active god named Aries, A-R-E-S. And Aries came from Zeus. Aries' father was Zeus and mother was Hera. So very, very strong god and goddess energy there that brought into the world ARES, which is Aries, and then the ram and the sheep symbolism, which is Aries, A-R-I-E-S, which is, it relates to cardinality, which is cardinal, it relates to sheep and all that sort of thing. So all the mythology, almost all astrologers across the world, many civilizations, revered the sheep or the ram, and it goes back to mostly the Greeks there. Now, I always talk about opposites. I know I keep mentioning this. I am surprised how many really amazing astrologers I watch on YouTube that have so many more subscribers than I do. People that I just watched a woman that has 30,000 subscribers in England. Can't remember her name, but it's 30,000 subscribers. And her video was very good. She was talking about the equinox. But the interesting thing is, as astrologers, I don't really think from one astrologer to the next, any of us are that much substantially better than someone else. If you know your stuff with astrology, you know your stuff. Depends on where we're coming from with the type of zodiac we're using. I'm a United States astrologer. The woman I was watching was UK. Then a couple of weeks ago, I was watching I think it was Scotland or Ireland astrologer. I've watched Canadian astrologers. So, there's a different take depending on where the country you're in and also your generation. But I'm amazed at how much astrologers don't talk about the polarities. The only thing this woman mentioned was that the day and the night are equal. So that's the beauty of spring and fall, right? Spring and fall are the same. Spring to fall, fall to spring. So the opposite is Libra. So often when we're talking about an energy and a sign, it doesn't mean that it only applies to all Aries people or Aries planets. We have to remember the opposite, because the opposite is an attraction. It's a magnetic attraction with the two signs. And this goes for all the polarities in the zodiac. And Aries and Libra is a very strong magnetic attraction to each other. Aries and Libra people, I have seen this so many times in charts when I've looked up people's charts about people that were friends or had some kind of grouping and attraction with Aries planets and Libra planets. It happens so much. I know a couple that I was looking at their charts not too long ago. She's on the Aries cusp with Taurus. He has the moon in Aries, but she has the moon in Libra. So, one has the moon in Aries, one has the moon in Libra, another one's on the Aries cusp. And so the Aries Libra opposite is very, very prominent in so many charts. So the opposite is Libra. So in 6 months from now, we'll be talking about Libra 1, which is all Venus energy. And that relates to Aphrodite. And Aries relates to Aries, a love affair, with Ares, the god, and Aphrodite. So you always have to consider that opposite when we're talking about the current astrological period. Because when you look at a chart, whether you look at the transits, an event chart, a celebrity chart, or a country's chart, a lot of people are doing that right now. Even a lot of financial people are doing transiting charts, but just doing it and looking at the financial pieces of it, like the second house and the eighth house and things like that, and possessions and value, you always have to consider the opposites. So no matter what chart we look at, Libra's there somewhere. Now, Libra's kind of on the sidelines right now because there is no transiting Libra at all, but Libra's there. Libra's there. It's on a house. Venus is integrating. And when the house cusps change, so for any of you that have had your chart done or you know your chart, these are all, this is the spring chart. So these are all the house cusps here. Now, of course, they change every hour. There's a different ascendant or rising sign. And then everything keeps changing and moving. And that moon sign is changing every 2.5 days. It's just ticking, going around the 12 signs. It goes back to the first sign, around the 12 signs, back to the sign, every 24 to 30 days, which is the lunar cycles, a woman's cycle, even cycles for creatures, even cycles for insects, parasites. Those are all, they all operate on those cycles. And so that's why it's so important to always incorporate the opposite. So if I were to talk about Aries for the next month and never mention Libra, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice, because I know Libra people are probably feeling like, hey, Aries, they know Aries is my opposite sign. There's nothing in Libra right now. Like, what's up for me? I would like to know how Libra people are feeling right now, because Libra people are probably feeling like, hey, what's up for me? Of course, they would have to, if you're a Libra person, you have to locate where Aries is in your chart, because that's where all this energy is concentrated. But for a Libra person in a solar chart, we would put Libra at the first house. Aries would be on the descendant. So the solar energy of Aries for a Libra person, generally speaking, would be enhancing their seventh house of partnership and marriage, the Libra house for Libra, and open relationships, and anything that's Venus related or Libra related would be seventh house ish. So that's where Libra people would be want to look to, is your think about your seventh house relationships, but then also look at where Aries is in your chart. So always mention the opposite. And again, in 6 months, it'll be Venus. But Aries and Libra being opposite are similar yet very different. So Libra is also a cardinal sign. They're both masculine signs, which means outward tendency towards extroversion or outward action. Although early Aries and early Libra energy can often tire easily with being social. They can be social, but they will often retreat. And Libra will need that time to recharge, and as an air sign would, that space. And Aries, because Aries is the baby. So Aries is all about the baby. That's interesting. The baby is dependent on your mom and dad. The baby is dependent on a caretaker when a baby's born, 100% dependent. But yet the sign of Aries is purely has an understanding of the self, that their self matters, and that they're part of this universe, that they are really here, and that people need to take notice. That's Aries kind of thing. So the opposite Libra. So for any Libra people, definitely look in your chart, find your Aries house, and find out what's going on with the transiting Aries planets. So again, the Greeks, it relates to cardinal, and it's aligned with the god of war. So the cardinal nature is so important. This is another thing I don't necessarily hear astrologers talking about. So Aries is a fire sign. I see all these reels on Instagram about Aries is this, Aries is that. And there are generalizations that the Aries energy has. But Aries is a cardinal sign. Cardinal means cardinal has to make an impact. Cardinal has to lead and start the race now. That goes for all cardinal signs. They have to move and start the race. That's the difference between cardinal and fixed and mutable. So, and it's not just being cardinal. So you combine being cardinal and you combine being fire. So that Aries has to start the race because they're cardinal, and they have to do it in an impulsive, enthusiastic way because they're fire. So Libra has to start the race as well. But Libra is more unhurried about it because it's air. So Libra's just as cardinal as Aries, but they do it in a mental way, not an impulsive way, and it's not with a fiery enthusiasm. It's more with an airy, an airiness, a mental airiness. So that cardinality, the cardinality of Aries is very important and very aligned to the god of war. Just starting anything. Aries, early Aries people have to start. There's a lot of starts in their lives, most likely either a trail of broken hearts behind them or a trail of all kinds of lost jobs or lost hobbies or projects, because it's very hard for an early Aries person to stick to. They have a lot of determination and a lot of wherewithal and natural talent, but to stick to something that, especially if something loses their interest, very hard for Aries people, especially early Aries people. So that cardinality has to start. So if you know anyone born this week, you'll know that they're always starting something. Maybe starting a new weight loss program, a new workout, a new job, a new hobby, something. These are not people that are. These are doers. They're not people that are going to sit on the couch for too long. So that, keep in mind that cardinality when you look at an Aries planet, that need for action now. The glyph here, the ram, and that's kind of an old school glyph. So ram or sheep. I mentioned with Pisces how some Pisces people are more like fishes, and some stronger Pisces people are more like whales. So I think that goes for every sign. Every sign has one or two symbols generally, but there are levels of the sign depending on your maturity, involvement, and what you identify with. Maybe as like your spirit animal, right? And like Native Americans say you have a spirit guide or a spirit animal. And I think we all do. So, you might see an animal in nature. You might see a hawk and identify with the hawk more than a more mundane bird. Whether it's a predatory bird or a prey bird, you might identify with one of those. And if you're an Aries person, or you know someone born this week, you might see them, you might know, wow, yeah, you're right. That person's very much a ram, kind of ambitious, strong, fiery. They may be a ram in one part of their life and then might be a sheep in another part, or vice versa. I was watching an interview where I'm going to mention Billy Corgan's astrological chart in a little bit. Billy Corgan's the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins alternative rock band from the 90s. And even though Billy is not an Aries, but his birthday was 4 days ago, so I wanted to mention him. But I was watching an interview with him. He interviewed Pat Benatar and her husband, Neil Giraldo, who formed the group Pat Benatar in the 70s and 80s. And Neil said, well, Neil's a Capricorn, but he said, with Pat in the studio, I'm aggressive. And in my personal life with Pat, I'm a sheep. And she said, in our personal lives, I'm aggressive. And in the studio, I let Neil do let Neil do the songwriting for me. When she said, hit me with your best shot, when she sang that song, hit me with your best shot. So she just gave up the reins and said, you're in control, you're in charge. So they do that. That's what makes their marriage good. Now, they're not Aries. They're both Capricorns, actually. But it's interesting that they identify with being kind of like a stronger goat or a lesser goat in their personal or private lives, and that they can be a little more passive, a little more aggressive, depending on the situation. So that's an important lesson for Aries people to learn, too. You can't always be a ram with everybody. You can't always be knocking down doors and just demanding what you want. That is a quality that can really rub the other 11 signs the wrong way, as Aries people just demanding what they want, and they want it. When do they want it? Not yesterday, now. And so that can be, it gets Aries people into a lot of hot water, because Aries people, both male and female, they want things yesterday, especially the early Aries. Now, if you know someone born this week and they look at their Mars, and their Mars is in, let's say, an Earth sign, let's say it's in Virgo, this Mars person would have that childlike wonder. Their identity, their life force would be Aries, but their energy would be modified by Virgo. And it would be more mild-mannered and practical for the most part, depending on the aspects. So it wouldn't be pure impulse and pure, raw, kind of childish emotion or childlike emotion. That Virgo would say, wait a minute, I want to analyze how we use our energy a little bit more before we spring into action. So it's very important to look at the Aries person. I've met people that were Aries that didn't seem like an Aries to me at all. And I looked at their Mars, and almost every time Mars was in Pisces, Virgo, maybe Cancer, definitely something that would soften or maybe even put the fire out of Aries in a little bit, so to speak. So that ram or sheep, most Aries people, you'll know, they are ram or sheep, and they can go back and forth. They can be irritating to be around because they're often a little bit of both. But luckily, Aries people are extremely likable. Again, the boy next door, the girl next door. Aries people, especially early Aries people, Sarah Jessica Parker, Matthew Broderick, who are a couple, some other celebrities I'll talk about. There's a boyishness and a girlishness that's very charming and likable. Aries people can be very likable in a natural way. Their honesty, their enthusiasm can be very refreshing, and a lot of people do like them, and they can be very fun to be around. But they're always butting heads. Even a sheep, even a gentle butt, always butting heads. So, needless to say, all the other signs that talk about Aries, they love to talk about how Aries people, need to grow up. Aries people need to mature, slow down. All that's true. Wherever you have an Aries planet, it's going to want to make its mark now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, not in a week, not when Mercury goes direct, but now. So that's the most important thing. But the ram or the sheep symbology, think about that if you know someone who's in Aries, or think about if you have an Aries planet, think about are you taking charge as a ram with it or a sheep, that sort of thing. So let's look at the transits here. We have the sun is now at 1 degree of Aries. So again, this is the solar return for all early Aries people. So this is your one time a year where the solar energy gives you the strength of your sun. It should increase your health, your will, and your strength, your confidence. Aries is a naturally confident sign. Aries can be a little have a feeling of inadequacy because, like a baby or like a child, of not knowing if they're living up to an expectation or knowing how to do something, that naivete, but generally a natural confidence. So early Aries people born this week, you are getting your solar return. And I heard another astrologer mention this this week when I watched the video. This is very important. For this year, Pluto is in this early degree of Aquarius, right? So for Pluto being in an early degree of Aquarius, it is sextiling these early Aries people that are today, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, and that's it. Because Pluto's going to move super slow this year, and then guess what? Yep, Pluto's going to go back to 3 of Aquarius to 2, and it's going to go back to early. And now it would sextile. It's going to sextile the early Aries people. In general, it will, but it won't do that again because you only have your solar return this week. So in a month from now, it might still be sextile your sun, but it's not in unison with your solar return. So I heard an astrologer say that, and she was really good about that. use the power of the Sun and Pluto together with that sextile. That's really friendly. The Sun and Pluto playing nicely together. They're friends, the Aquarius and Aries. Natural friendship. So use that power wisely. Early Aries people would be wise to meditate and take advantage of that. Could really, really tap into that. Venus, also super early at 3. And Mercury is at 6. So, of course, these are retrograde. Mercury and Venus are retrograde in Aries, which is odd because now Venus, Aries, love nature is impulsive. Mercury, Aries, thinking is impulsive and assertive. And yet, Mercury retrograde is giving us some time to pause and think. Wait a minute. Do we want to be that impulsive? Do we want to make that decision in the coming month? Or should we wait a little bit? Because it's hard to hold back. It's hard to not, it's hard to not let the arrow flow with an Aries planet. I mean, it's hard enough not to let a Sagittarius arrow not go. But with Mars, the cardinality of wanting it now, very hard for an Aries planet, unless it has really, really supportive aspects or aspects Saturn, where it would level it out and it would slow it down greatly. There's going to be, it's like repressed impulsivity. So when Mercury goes direct on April 7th, and that's only in 2.5 weeks. So the next 2.5 weeks, you're biding your time with Mercury and Aries, but think of all the thoughts. Our thoughts are so fired up right now. That's the beauty of it. So again, find out where Aries is in your chart, and that's where you are fired up. Now, for people that don't have any Aries in your chart, if you have 0 Aries planets, it's still there in your chart somewhere. You have to find your cusp, your house cusp. But this is something new for you that maybe in a past life, you didn't need to have Aries this time because you already did your Aries. You already did all your great Aries leadership stuff, your warrior stuff. You did it in another lifetime. So that's why you didn't choose it this time. So maybe you've already mastered it. So that's why there's no Aries. But you can still tap into it depending on what house it is in your chart. You know, if it's the 11th house, it's the community. It's the community spirit, Aquarius house. If it's the 10th house, it's going to be with the public. You know, whether it's YouTube or you're in front of people at work or speaking or whatever. So just find out where that Aries is so you can use this energy to fire yourself up. And someone said to me, someone I follow said, I'm really trying to take charge with my channel lately. And, and that was the creative juices of Pisces that was, the cauldron of Pisces was stirring, but now is the time to take that Pisces creativity and really actually do something with it, which is great. And then Saturn is moving fast now. We're at 23 of Pisces, which is great. The North Node, 27 of Pisces, and Neptune at 29 of Pisces, critical degree, finishing up all these endings. All this Pisces, Aries, right? In the last couple of years, you saw all these astrologers talking about, look at all this Pluto and Capricorn stuff. But then it went into Aquarius. Then it went back into Capricorn. Capricorn, Aquarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. And then Aquarius, Pisces, Aquarius, Pisces. So you always have to consider the cusp degrees are, there's critical degrees at 29, and then 0 and 1 is pure raw energy of that sign, which makes it much more poignant depending on the rest of the chart and the aspects. So all of this going on, all this Pisces and Aries energy. Now, there's really no earth signs going on. We have Uranus at Taurus, the 24, which I've been talking about for months and months and months. She's, it's just like Uranus wants to surprise us, but Taurus doesn't. Surprise us. No, don't surprise us. I don't want to change. We have to change. So if you think about, that's a metaphor for life right now. what's going on with governments and the money systems and everything. It's like we have to explode and shake things up and change, but some systems are dying, but some people are holding on like nails on a chalkboard. They're holding on because they don't want to change, and some of that is the Uranus and Taurus. Let me see here. So yeah, a lot going on, mostly Pisces and Aries energy there. And it's the Aries energy. The next month is a great time for ideas, because then when we get into Taurus, Taurus is a good time to implement them and actually follow through and continue. So if you come up with an idea, let's say today or yesterday, doesn't matter what age you are, if you come up with a new idea, a new system of something new to take charge, if you concentrate on it right now, when we start Taurus, if you're still as interested in it on April 21st, on April 22nd, we'll talk about Taurus, if you're still as fired up, but maybe a little calmer about it, because you'll feel that shift to Taurus, that means, I think, that means that's a good idea. That means that idea is being planted, and don't let it go. Continue it. As long as it's positive, obviously. You know, people get crazy ideas and do crazy stuff. So again, you know, it depends. Aries can be a wild sign sometimes. Now, I said that Pisces can be a wild card of sorts, but it's more in a mysterious way, because Pisces is so changeable and mysterious. Aries is not. The raw energy of Aries is not mysterious. That's kind of the beauty, and sometimes not curse, but sometimes the misfiring of Aries is that it is so bright and hot and vibrant, and that it can burn anything in its path. It can blaze trails. It can be a trailblazer, but it can also burn the wood and burn the earth, moving so fast. So 2.5 more weeks. Wait till April 7th when we're in Aries. Of course, I'll talk about that when Mercury goes direct. Then Venus will go direct. And then we have so much Aries energy to talk about. And that'll be a little unbalanced until we get into some Taurus transits, and then talk about that conjuncting to Uranus. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, mostly Pisces, mostly Aries going on. And constellation is about developing reason and discipline. So this constellation with Pegasus and flying high, and the impulsivity of the fishes, the horses, the ram, and the sheep can all fly in these creative, impulsive directions. So the lesson is to develop reason, which would be more Libra, the opposite, and discipline, which would be Capricorn, and sensitivity, which is Cancer. So that's the 4 cardinal signs, and that's how the cardinal signs are similar yet different, and how those signs would teach a lesson to Aries. And I'll talk more about that in the future. I'm going to do more videos about how the gifts of your sign, how you actually teach the other signs. And that's why we get irritated with other people that are different from us, because they're teaching us. There's a lesson in there. There's a lesson in there. You know, I used to get frustrated when I was a teenager, and even in college. When I started getting into astrology, I was very frustrated with some people that had major Capricorn in their chart. Now, you could ask me, well, Jeff, do you have major Capricorn in your chart? Well, no, I don't. Isn't that interesting? I have the part of fortune in Capricorn, which is part of a lesson in how I can find joy and fortune in my life. But I have no major Capricorn. I don't have a node. I don't have any planets in Capricorn. I don't have Capricorn rising. So isn't that interesting that as I was maturing, you know, and becoming a young adult, I found that people with major Capricorn planets, certain placements, very frustrating, and they were frustrated with me as well. So there were lessons there. And that also goes along with my astrological chart and where it falls in your houses. But there are all lessons there in our with the innate gifts of the sign that we teach other people. So, you know, give people the benefit of the doubt. We've all been hurt. Karen says, looking forward to Mercury and Venus going direct on April 7th. Yes, correct. Definitely. Yeah, because Aries, you know, any sign, obviously we have Mercury retrograde in all kinds of different signs throughout the year. But to have it in Aries, Mercury Aries astrologically is not, it's not necessarily well placed, and but it's not at all poorly placed. Sort of neutral. I think it's a fairly good placement for Mercury, but Aries doesn't want to be retrograde. The sign of Aries, the essence of Aries, does not want to pause. So this is good that it's pausing. It gives us a chance to pause. So once it's direct, all the people that have Aries planets, it's going to be, the gates are, you know, it's like, have you ever seen those dog videos of people that have farms and the dogs herd the sheep and stuff, and the farmers they'll gather all the dogs and then do a video, and then they'll open the gate. They have all these like different types, all these different sized dogs all just running. That's what it's going to be like. It's going to be very, very interesting with all that air, because you can't hold. That's another thing. You can't hold pure raw Aries energy. You can't hold it back. The Aries person will find a way and find an outlet for that energy, whether you're in their path or not. They're gonna go around or jump over you or whatever, but they'll find a way. Aries planets always find a way to do what they want. And again, is that a positive or negative? Depends on, that's in the eye of the beholder kind of thing. But yeah, that's Aries planets. But that's the transits there. Very interesting. Celebrities, I have a lot. I have Diana Ross. I think I mentioned her last year. She's just awesome. Very, very strong, very raw, very fiery. She says, I'm coming up. I want the world to know. So there you go. Even the shyest Aries person you know, even the most introverted Aries person you know, there will be something about them that they will need to make their mark on people around them. They won't be afraid to do it. There's something, whether it's in their work or a hobby or a sport. And this is another thing with these celebrities when I was looking up. Aries is always naturally competitive, even if they grew up with very laissez-faire parents. If you grew up with hippie parents that were super laid back and very permissive and didn't discipline much, or didn't, you know, strive to want, especially their firstborn child, to really be ambitious and you know, make a mark in the world and get a good career and everything, it doesn't matter, because the early Aries energy is Mars. Mars is competition. So you'll see that in any Aries planet. There's always an element of competition. Often it's just with themselves, but sometimes it is with others. Van Gogh, I've mentioned him many times in my Aries videos, so I don't want to repeat myself. Van Gogh, an absolute Aries innovator, master. Steven Tyler, the lead singer of Aerosmith, kind of a not so appealing band to most people, kind of a low-brow kind of band. But I mention him because he has that raw Aries spirit in the Aerosmith music. Anyone that liked rock music in the 70s and 80s, Aerosmith, and they're actually generation a little bit above me, before me, but they had a song called Dream On, and it's very emotional and raw, and it's very childlike. So there you go. Rupert Greenall is the keyboardist for one of my favorite groups called The Fix, and they said one thing leads to another, and a lot of their music is driven by Rupert's keyboard harmonies and melodies, which are so dynamic. He's one of the best. Any of you that play keyboard or piano or know anything about atmosphere and scales, his music with The Fix, unbelievable. So no one talks about him. So underrated. He's a master. Herb Alpert, most people will know him with his kind of old school jazz, but also commercial jazz. Trumpeter, very much an innovator and leader in the jazz pop world. He helped to kind of create that genre, really. Very much a leader. Had his own record company too. Larry Coryell, also another leader and innovator in jazz music, guitarist, very, very good. David Robinson, he was the drummer for the Cars from Boston, Massachusetts in the 70s and 80s, and lent a very, very good Aries type of Mars beats to the Cars. James Iha is the musician from the original lineup of the Smashing Pumpkins, where I'm going to talk about Billy Corgan's chart in a minute. James Iha is Billy's friend and co-musician from that 90s band. James Caan, who is passed now. I was just talking with my family about what an amazing actor he was. And, you know, he tended to play these macho, these toxic, masculine, machismo kind of pure Aries roles. But James Caan, almost like I mentioned William Shatner too, and like William Shatner, Steve McQueen, Marlon Brando, what is it with all these Aries, right? You start to look at their faces, you start to look at their energy, and even if you're not into astrology or don't understand it, you see it. You see how these people use their energy. It's unmistakable that astrology makes a mark from the chart there. And he is a big proponent of that Aries kind of acting and energy. And he was wonderful in that movie Misery, which is such a dark movie from the 90s with Kathy Bates, where he's a victim. He's Paul Sheldon. He's the author of the novel. And of course, he has an accident and amazing. And he has to kind of be charming to try to save himself from Kathy Bates, who's a psychopath. So very, very commanding, but very interesting. Tony Banks is another keyboardist, pianist, but from the group Genesis, who was part jazz, part progressive rock, part pop, part Baroque. Genesis has all kinds of music. But again, another leader and innovator in the keyboard synthesizer world. You know, early Aries people are absolutely natural leaders, but they do it in a childlike, with a childlike sense of wonder. It's just amazing that they have that. Andrew Ferris, a multi-talented musician who co-formed the Australian group In Excess, and it's interesting that the group is INXS, In Excess. So that goes along with Aries getting into hot water. So that's a theme too, which we'll be talking about. Aries people do get themselves into hot water because they sometimes don't know when to stop. And Clark Datchler, he is the lead singer of a group called Johnny Hates Jazz, who, when my son was young, I would play the song in the car. I love the song. It's called Shattered Dreams. It's a big pop hit from the late 80s. So if you listen to any FM radio at night or anything, you've heard Shattered Dreams 100 times. It's a beautifully crafted pop song. So he says, nothing but shattered dreams. But my son would say salad dreams. He would sing nothing but a salad dream, salad. So just interesting. But he's great. He's great. And they're back on tour now. They're reformed and he's touring again. There's a lot of 80s and 90s groups that are reforming and coming back. A lot of those people are going through Saturn returns. And a lot of those people are people that are born in 64, 65, 66, 67, but also even in the half cycle of people born from like 57, 58, 59, and 60. You'll see a lot of those artists from those years in groups reforming, kind of coming out of their semi-retirement and doing a lot of 80s and 90s tours there. So this is Mars, which is action, force, energy, and exertion. That's Mars. Force, action, energy, and exertion. That's what early Aries energy is all about. There's nothing like it in the Zodiac. So any of you that know someone born between March 25th and 1st or 2nd, you'll know there's something very, very unique about that person. And not like in an Aquarius way, not in an air sign sort of way, because Aquarius is all unique because it's air and it's the the waters of knowledge. But Aries marks the first sign of the zodiac. There's nothing more raw and primal than starting this whole zodiac cycle over all again at the 0 degree, and then tonight the 1 degree of Aries. So before we go, I want to talk about Billy Corgan. So those of you, I think most people know who Billy Corgan is. He's pretty famous. He has a podcast now that he just started that's on YouTube, and he's done multiple interviews over the years with all sorts of people, but now he's interviewing people. So Billy's born in 1967, so he just turned 58. Now Billy's Saturn here, Billy's Saturn here is at 1 degree of Aries. He's a 26 Pisces. He just had his solar return, and then he's literally 4 degrees away from Aries. So when he was 4 years old, he went into his Aries progression, and he was basically a progressed Aries at 4 years old. And then at 34, he went into a progressed Taurus, which he's still in now, obviously. He'll be in until he's 64, and he's 58. But the interesting thing is he has reformed his group and has this brand new podcast where he has a new image. Now he's a alternative gothic musician. So any of you that know Billy Corgan, you'll know he wears these long gothic robes. He's bald. He has a very distinct look to him. And he wears dark makeup and often boots and dark clothes, grays and blacks and whites, and all sorts of interesting kind of textures. But now he's dressed up as a mature man, getting into his late 50s, approaching 60, interviewing people and kind of flipping his image, so to speak. Now his sun in Pisces is ruled by Neptune in Scorpio, which just adds to his allure and mystery. His music is dark. His lyrics are dark. They talk about pain. He often talks about in interviews as a Pisces, he talks about how hard his childhood was. And he talks about some abuse, unfortunately, that he suffered, and that his father was a drug dealer, and he dealt drugs right in the home, right in front of Billy. And there was a lot of dysfunction between his mother and his father, and that Billy was exposed to musicians and partying and drugs from a very young age. But fortunately, he got into music and got into the guitar at around 10 or 11, and that became a prominent thing for him. So he also has Jupiter in Cancer, which is up here, which is basically an amazing water trine. Jupiter in Cancer, Neptune in Scorpio, and a late degree sun in Pisces. All 3 water signs in a late degree, 2 of them retrograde. Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, all trine, which is quite amazing and amazing for music. But his Saturn, Billy's Saturn, is at 1 of Aries. So that's interesting because, of course, we are, as I mentioned, we're at Saturn at 23 of Pisces. We're about 8 degrees away from someone that's just turned 58. He's 8 degrees away from having his Saturn an exact hit on his Saturn return. So it's going to be a little while for him. It's not in the coming months. It's going to be as he's approaching 60. I could look up the exact date, but it will be a while. But once it gets to around 5 or 6 degrees away from his 1 degree, so once it goes to 25 degrees of Pisces about, he's already starting the changes. So this is something to look for in your chart or someone you know that is coming up on a Saturn return. It's so marked. It's very marked and very specific on how people will not only try to reinvent themselves, but that because Saturn is work and career, It's a restructuring of the way of your daily routine, but it's also a restructuring of how you can stick to something and persevere. If you want to relate the Saturn to Capricorn, Capricorn is a persevering sign, where other signs will give up. Capricorn doesn't give up easily. So Pisces, the Saturn in Aries is a cusp degree as well. So Neptune is right on his Saturn right now, right on it, and it's coming up right to hit right on it. So the Saturn is going to be right. Neptune is going to be right on his Saturn. Neptune was just right on his Sun as well. Now his Mercury is in Pisces, which is stationed at 4 degrees, which is an early degree, almost an Aquarius Pisces Mercury cusp, which is probably why he's, to me, I think he's quite brilliant. He is brilliant in his own way. If you watch an interview with him, and also creative, but he's like sweet, but he has a bite to him. When he's interviewing people, he has a bite to him, and he's rebellious. You can see it. I can relate to Billy because Billy has the sun. Billy has an aspect I have in my chart. So you get a little insight into Astroscoop here, into me. So little lesson in the hidden gems of astrology in the natal chart. Here's Billy's Sun at 26 of Pisces. Okay, so we know he's a late Pisces. He's a Pisces 3, basically on the cusp. He's a dancer. He's a dreamer. He thinks deep. He's philosophical. He is intense. There's a hint of Pluto there, and it's also Pegasus. So I mean, he's flying high. He's flying like horses. So you imagine what this guy must think of when he's making his music, especially with a Mercury in Pisces. Oh my goodness. Holy cow. And trine a Neptune in Scorpio and trine a Jupiter in Cancer. Whoa. If that's not emotional, I don't know what is. But here's a little bingo. His Sun in Pisces is opposition Uranus in Virgo. Look at this Uranus. Look at this Virgo stellium he has. He's an absolute perfectionist. He has Pluto, Uranus, all right there in Virgo, conjuncting his ascendant in Virgo. So while Billy in Virgo, conjuncting his ascendant in Virgo. So while Billy can be a sweet, emotional Pisces, he is all business, and he is incredibly sharp, and he has both worlds there. He has the Virgo and the Pisces. But my point is, he has Sun opposition Uranus. His are in water and earth. I have Sun opposition Uranus in my chart as well. And that aspect, and his Uranus is retrograde. So his sensitive Pisces Sun is opposed his Uranus in Virgo, and it's retrograde. So there's a big push-pull within Billy. Go look up Billy Corgan tonight or tomorrow and watch a video of his on YouTube. Watch him interview someone or be interviewed, and you'll see he vacillates. It's probably the best word. He vacillates between being dominant, especially mentally. He likes to be dominant mentally. Being dominant, being a mental genius, and yet also being receptive and vulnerable and very much a Pisces. And he's this 1 minute, 5 minutes later, he's dominant. Then he's passive. He vacillates. And part of the Sun-Uranus opposition, which I have, it makes us, we have to do our own thing. And my parents know that, knew that. You know, it depends on where the houses and the signs involved. But the Sun, Uranus, we absolutely are rebels in a way. That doesn't mean we're purely rebellious, and it doesn't mean we're going to go throw bombs and be an activist and go to a protest. And we're not. we might be quiet about it. It might be in one small, quiet section of our world and our life and our private life. It might be in our job. I know in my work, in my jobs I've had, I can be very much a lone wolf, and I love to do my own thing at work as long as I know what to do. But bosses don't always appreciate that, because bosses want to be the boss. So I've had trouble with some bosses because of that. But the Sun opposition Uranus gives me an innovative approach so I can be a team player as well. So watch a Billy Corgan interview. Also consider how you've been watching me all these months. Sun opposition Uranus is like, we can be fun and agreeable, but if you step on our freedom, whatever freedom we really need, the Sun opposition Uranus, to do our own thing, then we're like, whoa, okay. And it's interesting because I don't have any Aquarius planets, nor does Billy. So that's the lesson here. I know we're talking about Aries, but I wanted to mention Billy because it's so relevant that Billy's got this this interview podcast, and that he has all this Pisces and Aries energy. He also has Venus at 27. He has Venus at 27 of Aries. You know, I've mentioned many times, Venus is not gentle in Aries, and you can see that in him. He's assertive and aggressive. Venus Aries people are not gentle. Doesn't mean that they're not loving or caring, but they're not gentle. You know, and I've had multiple Aries Venus friends, both male and female, and they are great and fun to be around, but damn, they're not gentle, and they can be quite blunt, and they will inevitably hurt people's feelings even by accident. So that's the primal Aries energy. But Billy has that Sun Uranus. You know, it's little things like that. I'm going to start doing more of the deep dive astrology and showing you, for people, whatever level of astrology you're at, even if you're someone that's an advanced astrologer, you know, I might catch something that you don't catch, or you might catch something that I don't catch. So I learn something from other astrologers all the time. No matter how advanced I might think I am in a certain area, I'm always learning. But a little gem like that in Billy's chart, the Sun opposition Uranus, activates all that Pisces Aries cusp energy in his chart. And it's an opposition. Again, it's magnetic. Aries and Libra, I talked about opposition, magnetic attraction, very, very strong. So when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's really bad. But that's part of life, right? We're attracted to people, love, marriage, friendships, even quirky work relationships. We're attracted to people that are similar but different from us. And we are secretly attracted to people that have a trait that we wish we had. Like, damn, I wish I could be more like that guy. Or darn it, I wish I could be more like her. She's so annoying, so frustrating. How does she get everybody's attention in this room? Well, maybe we would like to be like that once in a while. We want to command the attention in the room and have people look at us a little more and say, hey, look at how great that person is. Whoa, kind of thing. So Carolyn says, Sun opposition Uranus is very Aquarius. Don't I know it? And again, I have no Aquarius. So that's the beauty of astrology. You have to dig deep into the chart. I know that about my chart. Billy knows that about his chart. That's why I like watching Billy. He's sweet. He can be a little pain in the butt. He's sweet. He can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. So when those little things in your chart get activated, you have to really use it for good. You know, part of why I have an astrology live stream is because of that Uranus aspect. I have to find outlets for it, because I can suddenly shift, and not always in a positive way. And it can get tense. So that energy, I have to direct it somewhere. Billy has to direct it somewhere. Any of you that have Aquarius planets or Uranus aspects, you know that you have to direct it somewhere spiritual, right? Go online, take a class, watch Jeff, watch another live stream, watch another podcast, That's where I'm doing. I'm filling myself with all of this interesting, spiritual, all these spiritual energies right now that all these astrologers are talking about. It's helping me fuel for what I want to do with my channel for the new year and everything. So it's a great thing. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Oh, we went into a little longer, and a lot of good energies. Happy vernal equinox. Happy spring. I know I did a little meditation last week. Just meditate on your ideas for the next 2 weeks. Just hold on to your ideas. Bide your time a little bit, because in another 3 or 4 weeks with the Aries energy, look into where it is in your chart. You will be able to move forward. That's definitely the time. Again, in about 3 or 4 weeks or so. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or share. Sign in and subscribe. Weekly live streams here, 8 p.m. on Fridays. I appreciate it very much. And Aries teaches all of us to have courage. So if at any other time of the year you're afraid to do something, anything, you want to try a new system, you want to try a new hobby, Aries tells you, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There's a song. There's a song by a group called Loose Ends, a hip hop, pop soul group from the '90s called Loose Ends, and they have a song called "Don't Be a Fool." They say, "Don't be a fool. Don't throw your life away." But that's kind of a good theme here. Don't be a fool, because the Aries energy is so impulsive. So you want to take that impulse of the ideas and starting something, but hopefully not like the tarot card, like the fool. Hopefully not in a foolish way. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Happy Aries.